Have you ever felt let down and disappointed by your friends? Probably. Most guys have. And in this video, I want to talk about why relying on your friends is holding you back. Now, this is why that successful people, guys who have reached the absolute top of their game, whether it was Muhammad Ali or people like Alexander Hamilton, they didn't only rely on their friends. Instead, they learned to make use of enemies, both as motivation and as objects of study. And that is the topic of this video, why you shouldn't overly rely on friends and instead you need to learn to make use of enemies. And this is Law 2 from Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power. This book has inspired millions of men. It's one of the best-selling books of all time. He basically talks about historical examples of how to really thrive in a very hyper-competitive environment, such as industry, business, relationships, what have you. So my name is Nick. I run the channel No BS Philosophy. I help men use pragmatic, practical philosophy and psychology so they can achieve the most in terms of health, wealth, business, and fitness. So if this is something you're into, stick around. So in this video, we're going to learn why using your enemies is not just some abstract concept, right? This isn't just something you think about, it's nice to do. No, this is a very practical thing. In reality, most people are not your friends. They are your competitors, and you need to learn how to use them. Being able to do this can really change the way you play the game of power, right? It takes you from being a small player in a small pond to really excelling and thriving and becoming a big player in the world. But before we even get into using enemies, we need to talk about why using friends and relying on friends is probably holding you back. So the problem is that friends know you very well. They know your strengths and sometimes they know your weaknesses as well. They know your insecurities, but most importantly, they probably don't want to see you thrive, right? There's this thing called the crab bucket mentality. And if you can imagine, you have a small bucket and there's a single crab in there. Now, in that instance, that crab can pretty easily climb out, right? It just needs to reach over the top, pull itself up, and it's gone. However, when this same bucket is filled with a bunch of crabs, as soon as that one crab starts to climb up, the others almost instantly and instinctively grab at its leg and pull it back down. Now, this is very similar to life in general. When you start to excel, you bring out other people's insecurities. They become envious of you. And as you go higher and higher, this tension of envy tends to rise. So what do? They naturally try to bring you back down to their level. Now, this isn't even something they consciously do, right? It's just something that is innate in us. Like envy is a very insidious, powerful force. And what happens is, when somebody sees you really starting to excel, really reaching places in life, if you started at the same place they did, they start to question their own worth, right? It really calls into question their inherent value, their work ethic, their skills. After all, if you could do it, they probably could too. And why aren't they? Well, there has to be something wrong with them in that case. And this is a very, very uncomfortable feeling. They're going to want to resolve that somehow. And it's easier for them to pull you down than it is for them to put in the work to rise up with you. So this is where this attitude comes from, unfortunately. And you see this a lot in small towns, right? There's a reason why you often have to leave a small town to excel in life. It's the same reason that you often have to get away from your family to excel in life. Unless you already have a group of friends or a family that's extremely driven, extremely ambitious, and extremely open-minded, then they're probably going to be holding you down. And again, this is not to say like you shouldn't have friends at all. You just shouldn't rely on them too much. And you should understand the limitations of relying on friends. Now, even whenever you do have friends that are very well-intentioned, that don't have this sort of limited belief, limited mindset, crab bucket mentality, there still is another problem with relying too much on friends. And that is they're probably very similar as you. They probably have the same set of skills, the same set of attitudes and aptitudes, the same connections and the same experiences. So in short, they're not going to be able to provide you with much new, right? Everything that you already have, they have, right? They can't give you new opportunities. They can't critique you. They can't look at your skills from a place of different perspective, right? They can't offer you a fresh perspective on things to do because they're too similar to you. So you really need to branch out and you need to be looking for other people to work with. And one place you can find other people to work with are your competitors. They're your enemies. And the last issue with relying on friends is that your friends generally want you to be comfortable, right? Even when they do see your weaknesses, they're probably not going to point it out. They're not going to give you the raw, honest feedback that you need simply because it's uncomfortable to give, right? They're not going to tell you things that you need to hear if you don't want to hear them. And even if you do want to hear them, they're probably not very comfortable with that tension of telling you, like, hey, you need to work harder. Hey, you need to quit fucking around doing this stuff over here when you should be focused here. They might hint at it, but they're probably not going to be very forthcoming, very direct. They're going to want you to be comfortable. And as we all know, comfort leads to stagnation, stagnation leads to decay, and decay is the prelude to death. So, even though your friends are great, they're well-intentioned, they might not have that crab bucket mentality, and they might even be able to offer you a different perspective. They probably won't, simply because they want you to be comfortable. And you need to get out of your comfort zone. So how do you do that? That's what we're going to talk about right now. The best way, the easiest way to get out of your comfort zone is to have a worthy enemy, to have a worthy adversary, right? There's a great quote that you can tell the character of a man by the quality of his enemies. If somebody has petty, small enemies, they're probably a petty, small person themselves. But what you need is great enemies, and you need to be able to utilize these enemies to leverage for your own growth and success. Here's how to do that. The good thing about enemies is they don't care about you, right? They're not trying to be your friend. They're not trying to make you comfortable. They see you as competition. They see you as somebody to overcome, right? You are in their way to success. Therefore, the quicker they can dispatch with you, the better. Now, what you need to do is you need to change that situation. You need to find a way to at least hang around enemies, learn from them, right? Learn their skills, learn their knowledge, get some of their connections, or work directly with them. You need to find a way to be able to collaborate with enemies on a common project. So you need to be able to figure out how to make strategic collaborations with enemies. And how you do this is you emphasize shared interests, right? You find a reason for you guys to work together, something that you can do for them that will benefit them. And then you pitch the idea based exclusively on shared interests. This is not a friendship. It's not based on emotional attachment or sentimentality. It's what can you do for that person? How can you help them? In order to effectively use enemies, you need to remember 4 things. First, stay objective, right? Don't get caught in your feelings. Your enemies have nothing personally against you, right? They don't care about you. First of all, they don't care enough about you as a person to be like, oh, I don't like that person, so I just want to overthrow them for no reason, just based on my own dislike. No, it's a very cold, calculating thing. It's a cold, calculating world. You're just in their way. Like, you're a competitor. They need to get rid of you to get to number 1. So there's that. So don't take anything they say personally, right? If you get them on your side, right? If you are working together and if they criticize you, don't get butthurt, right? This isn't them personally attacking you. It's them giving you very valuable feedback that you can use to rise up. Second, like I said, identify your shared interests. Look for ways that you can work together. Maybe you're both in the same field or the same company and you're trying to get more clients for your company, or you're trying to improve the company's bottom line. Now, this is a great way to work together. Or maybe you're both trying to advance in a certain direction, right? You're both trying to become the best soccer player in your school, something of that nature. Well, the way you're going to be doing that is you're going to be playing against each other. You're going to be practicing with each other. If you're just playing against the shitty soccer players, you're not going to get very good. So you need to work together to train with each other so that you can both improve in life. Now, importantly, the best way to do this, the best way to leverage an enemy through shared interest, is to attach your long-term growth to their immediate success, because that's what they really want, right? They want wins right now. And if you can help them get that immediate win while also attaching that to your long-term growth, you're going to win in the end. So do that. Next, you need to leverage their perspective. Like I mentioned earlier, Your enemies are going to be able to see things the way that you don't. They're going to be able to show you things that your friends can't. So you need to be very aware of the way that they see you and they see the world. And you need to be able to assimilate that into your own worldview. Use them as somewhat of like a mirror or a telescope to see things that you can't directly ascertain yourself. Take their feedback, use it to improve. Lastly, you need to set boundaries, right? Again, this is not friendship. You're not buddies. This is a collaboration. And this happens throughout history, right? You say what you will about Churchill, but he was very good at working with people he didn't necessarily like in order to rise up, in order to improve the position of England at the time. Same thing with Napoleon, right? Like Napoleon was very good at working against enemies, using enemies as motivation. If he didn't have the British Navy, he would not have had a reason to conquer all of Europe. And if he didn't face resistance in Europe, he wouldn't have had a reason to innovate his military strategies and tactics. And this is what made him a living legend. So again, you need to set those boundaries and realize that enemies are there for you to improve. So finally, you need to be happy to have enemies. If you don't have enemies, then you're not doing anything worthwhile, right? Haters only hate people above them, and people tend to get pissed off when you disrupt the existing order of things. So if you don't have either of these, if you don't have haters, if you don't have people pissed off at you disrupting things, then you're not doing anything, right? Having enemies is a natural result of doing good things. And again, you need to be able to find the worthy rivals that can push you to become better. So embrace the notion of having rivals and enemies. Finally, realize that by having enemies, you are learning the valuable skill of resilience, right? If you're going to encounter obstacles throughout your life, whether it's other people or situations or the cruel facts of nature. And you need to be able to develop a thick skin towards that, a sort of stoicism, a sort of appreciation of the fact that you are facing obstacles and able to go through them rather than just collapse over and, woe is me, start crying and this sort of thing. So use your enemies as a valuable teacher to become stronger yourself. As this great Stoic said, the obstacle is the way. Same thing. The enemy is the way. So the key takeaway you need to have is this: never dismiss your enemies. They're valuable. They're a good thing to have. You need them. They complete you, right? What would Batman be without the Joker, right? He would be, just this weirdo in a cape, doing nothing. But he needs this kind of psychotic man to fight in order to give himself purpose, in order to make himself better. Same thing with you. Who would you be without your enemies? Who would you be without your obstacles? Again, be appreciative of these things. So if this is something you enjoy and this is something that resonates with you, please hit the subscribe button and the like button. And if you want my free actionable summary of the 48 Laws of Power, it's yours when you subscribe to my Substack. Now, on that Substack, every single week I post actionable mental models that have been used by thousands of men to succeed. I've read probably hundreds of self-development books, and I basically distilled the most powerful concepts into short, digestible articles for your benefit. Subscribe to Substack. Not only will you get the articles, you'll get the actionable free summary of the 48 Laws of Power. Finally, if you know anybody who will benefit from this information, whether it's a friend or an enemy, please share this video. It helps my channel grow quite a bit. Thank you, and see you next time.